Hello. I want to talk to you today about good news and bad news for the New York City real estate market. Good news is I've been reading articles and studies on the effects of pandemics on the real estate market. 19 Zillow did a study that's cited by an article in Curbed, where they took data from various different studies and they compiled it and said that 1918 Spanish flu epidemic and SARS more recently had very little effect on the real estate market prices. Under 2%, like 1.6%, 1.9% price differences. I'll show you the article here in Curbed. So how coronavirus is impacting the housing market. Now, it's very important when you're reading these articles to also know a little bit of the context, which is, for instance, that, this article discusses low home inventory and low rates as being a driver of, buyer activity, which we started to see more of in January and February. I agree with the CEO of Warburg when he says that, the market in New York City bottomed out at the end of 2019, probably in the last quarter of 2019, and started to really pick up in the first couple of months of the year, or really towards the end of 2019. But like when you're reading an article like this in Curbed, you have to remember that this is actually not specific to New York City, because in New York City we have high inventory and prices have been dropping, whereas in other parts of the country you've had low inventory, which has contributed to prices going up. Zillow conducted a study on housing during the previous pandemics and concluded that while home sales dropped dramatically during an outbreak, home prices stayed about the same or suffered a slight decrease. This makes intuitive sense because it's harder for prices to change when there are few transactions. In short, previous pandemics have simply put the housing market on pause. And that's kind of funny because that's a term we're using, right? In New York State, we're New York State on pause right now. This is also reflected in the stock markets. Part of the reason that, stock markets are so volatile is because they're so liquid, right? The stock market has in place protections where if it drops a certain percent, 5% or something in a day, and if in the day they suspend trading for 15 minutes, and then if it drops 20% in the day, then they suspend trading for the rest of the day. In real estate, you don't have that same kind of liquidity, right? It takes 45, 60, 75, 90 days to do a transaction. So prices can't change as fast. They just literally can't do it that fast because things don't transact as quickly. So that is actually a real buffer to the pricing dropping significantly and quickly in the real estate market. The other thing to note that this article in Curb talks about is most recent housing market data has already shown signs of this playing out in the United States. Web traffic to real estate portals like Zillow and Redfin have dropped by almost 40%. New listings of homes for sale have dropped by as much as 70%. In some markets like New York and East Bay, California, weekly mortgage applications dropped by 17.9%. Okay, and I'll just point out this Zillow article. It's called "Information from Past Pandemics and What We Can Learn." A literature review. If you want to Google it, just Google that title and Zillow and you'll come up with it. Here's a list of some of the studies where you can see, a 1.6% fall in home value, a 1918 flu. They talk about the GDP, et cetera, et cetera. So, okay. So the good news, right? The sort of good news part is that past pandemics have not really had a significant effect on real estate pricing. And the good news is also that because of real estate's inherent illiquidity, it is more price resistant or resilient, I should say, than compared to the stock market, which we saw drop 30%, and now it's back up 20%, and who knows where it's going to be in a day. The bad news part of this for New York City is that when you look at things like the SARS epidemic, and we're trying to draw conclusions from what people experienced during SARS to what they're experiencing now during coronavirus. The SARS epidemic affected something like 8,000 people worldwide, and there were under 800 deaths in total worldwide during SARS. So any kind of conclusion you're trying to draw from that is difficult, because it is an order of magnitude difference between what we are doing, or maybe multiple orders of magnitude difference between what we're experiencing here versus what they experienced in SARS not that long ago. In New York City alone, we have experienced over 10,000 deaths. This is just a very different effect, and it's sad to even have to talk about deaths and the effect on the real estate market. But what it is important, and what is going to be different in this case, which is already different, is we've got 20 million people who are filing for unemployment. We have an economy on pause, and we're not done with this. We're not at the end. We're right in the middle of this right now. So whether or not the coronavirus has an effect on the real estate market is really dependent upon the effect that the coronavirus has on the economy, right? And with SARS as an example, the economy bounced back pretty quickly. It went from the end of it went from November to July, and they declared it over in July. This is not going to be over in July. There are lots of parts of the world that this hasn't fully hit yet. This is going to be going on for a long time. So you have to be very careful when reading articles like that and coming to conclusions, or if anybody is predicting that they think that they know how this is going to affect the market, you have to really think about these things. And the fact that I don't know, I've been reading about this every day and I still am not sure, I don't think anybody can be sure, because we have to wait to see when the economy reopens and how things go, right? How soon do those 20 million people get back to work? And is that 20 million number really going to be 30 million number in the next month? And these things are definitely going to have an effect on the real estate market. The longer this lasts, the greater that impact is going to be. So right now, 5 to 10% is what we've seen in contracts that were being negotiated just as this all hit. And, will we see that or more if this lasts if we're in June and we're at June 15th and we're still on pause here in New York State and New York City? These are the questions that we need to ponder. And to be honest, I wish I had an answer for you. I don't know for sure, but I know that this is what we should be focusing on. This is what you should be focusing on if you're concerned about real estate values, buying or selling. Okay. So I hope this is a little bit helpful just for context, if not for giving you a definite number. I will continue to be paying attention, as should you. And we'll talk again soon. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay distanced. All right.